At the Security Council at the United Nations, where the U.S. has a permanent seat, and also that means a veto, and they can veto anything. That means all it takes the U.S. to stop it. There's a resolution that was put forward by the U.S. to call for a ceasefire, but that ceasefire also mentioned that you have to return the hostages, both living and dead, and stop the attacks on Israel. And that then Israel would stop the attacks on the Gaza Strip. And the U.S., that was voted down by two permanent members. It was China and Russia. So you'd think the U.S. would not accept their ceasefire resolution, which removed any language condemning Hamas, Logan. I mean, think about that. Not even condemning Hamas, not even condemning Hamas for what they did to people on October 7th. Leave out the rest of the war. Just what they did to children on October 7th and women and the elderly and the hostage taking. It's not there. You won't find it. They don't talk about hostages. And yet the U.S. veto it, so it didn't pass because they could have done a veto, and that means that would have killed the resolution. No, they abstained for the first time. After 3 times voting no, they abstained. And Logan, they say,
Karine Jean-Pierre, supposed to be a win for us.
But what we're most concerned about, and why we're watching it very carefully through our team, both at ACLJ Jerusalem, our international team, our NGO status at the UN, is that the United States making these moves politically over time, especially when it comes to the Biden administration and the left. And we can play for you because Karine Jean-Pierre was asked directly about it. It sounds like you're playing politics with this because you've now changed your policy, based on 18 to 29-year-olds who are protesting at their college campuses? Take a listen.
This is not about politics. It's not. The president does not lead his national security or things that are the right thing to do in this sense, right? Getting that hostage deal, making sure hostages come home, including, as I said, over and over again, American hostages, getting that humanitarian aid into Gaza and making sure that we believe that would lead to a ceasefire. That is not about politics. That is about the right thing to do.
The language doesn't include getting the hostages out, and it doesn't include Hamas, no condemnation of Hamas. All it does is say if they get humanitarian aid in, maybe then Hamas will do something good. And we've seen time over time, they've gotten humanitarian aid in this entire time, and they sell it or steal it.
Yeah, we know where it's actually going. That's been the concern the entire time. And sure, I mean, maybe there's part of them going, you know what, we're not going to be able to get them to free the hostages, so whatever, throw in the towel. But it's sad when this is the place we got to in America, where you're able to say, okay, let's take out all the rough language. What was the rough language? Getting hostages out. It's ridiculous.
This is a clear move by the Biden administration. Looking at their poll numbers, which are not good in younger voters, where they typically, the left relies on, it's not just the college vote either, Logan, that we're talking about. We're talking, a lot of people say 18 to 29. I'd say it's more like 18 to 40, 18 to 39, really. And we've seen a shift in
I would even say
the Christian community. We've seen a shift amongst, definitely on college campuses, getting more radical in support of and anti-Israel, but in support of Palestinian causes, regardless of the brutality of the attack on October 7th. It didn't take long for everybody to just forget October 7th and just focus on the fact that Israel's response, as if they're just attacking Gaza for no reason.
For no reason. And I think you're right in that age demographic. I think it maybe even skews a little older, where you have people that are in college now, like I said, maybe up through adults. If you're on the left, essentially, you have to be. This is your talking point.
You've become anti-Israel.
That's your part of your platform now.
The entire reason Israel is still engaged in this conflict, which is endangering the lives of Palestinians in Gaza because of what happened October 7th. They have to respond as a sovereign nation, and they still haven't got all of their hostages back. If Hamas wanted most of this conflict to come to a close, they would get those 100 hostages, whether some are bodies and some are alive, to Israel. And guess what? Palestinian citizens would probably not be facing any more of these air raids, at least for a period of time, if Hamas also stopped firing at Israel. That's all they have to do. But they're unwilling to do that, and they've got the UN backing them, saying they can keep hostages, they can keep firing on Israel, but Israel's got to stop. And the U.S. has voted no on that resolution 3 times because of that. It makes no sense. This vote, they just abstained, which means it moved forward. So they're very close to making a vote that is actually anti-Israel at the United Nations, going a step further than the Obama-Biden administration. And they're right, especially I think if you give them another 4 years. And it's because of people like AOC. Even though there's only 5 or 6 of these members of Congress that are in Congress, Logan, elected, this is the base of the Democrat Party right now. They all are echoing her message. Take a listen to her last week on the House floor.
If you want to know what an unfolding genocide looks like, open your eyes. It looks like the forced famine of 1.1 million innocents.
The 1 million people she's talking about are not all innocents. They decided to elect a terror group years ago. They've decided to allow that terror group to be part of their families. I mean, I think within families in the Gaza Strip, maybe there's connections within all of them to Hamas. They did that with doctors. They did that with the UN Refugee and Relief Agency, and it was like 1 out of every 10 employees was working for Hamas. One out of 90% of employees had a family member as part of Hamas. So she says 1.1 million innocents. These are all people who are celebrating what happened on October 7th. And Logan, you don't get to go into a sovereign country, rape, murder, and kill, take hostages, and expect a sovereign country like Israel not to respond, and that response to be pretty darn harsh. This election will be the deciding point, because if you do another 4 years of the Biden team, the next step, once you start abstaining, is to actually voting for resolutions that condemn Israel. And so you're no longer that trustworthy ally for Israel who stands in the way of their condemnation at the UN, which they're the most condemned country in the world at the United Nations. The most condemned over every issue. Think about all the countries in the world with massive human rights issues and that pose dangers to the entire world. But yet it's Israel of 7 million people that gets condemned more than any other country in the world. The U.S. at the Security Council used to be that a vote you could count on to end the most threatening condemnation, which is the condemnation that comes out of the Security Council, because that is real. The General Assembly is kind of these non-binding resolutions. I mean, the Security Council could be a vote away right now from sending in peacekeepers to stop the war. And let me tell you, last time they did that with Israel, the peacekeepers were working with the terrorists to target Israeli military troops.